How's it going? Tuesday afternoon, about 3 o'clock. Ken Arizona here in Vista, California, August 16th, 2021, episode 280. Baseball's best hitters, Hall of Famers, best hitters in a certain decade that I'm covering. And I'm covering 1980 to 1989. Who was the best hitter during those 10 years? Who was the best pitcher during those 10 years? You'd be curious to find out who wins it. But first, what I've done with all the previous episodes is recap what I've done. 1870, 1879 is where I started. And if you want to know about all the Hall of Famers and what they did in each decade, watch each episode specifically. But for recap, Jim O'Rourke won 1870, 1879 as far as the hitter. Al Spalding won the pitching. 1880, 1889, Camp Hansen won it, the hitting. Tim Keefe was the best pitcher. 1890, 1899, Ed Delante, best hitter. Kid Nichols, best pitcher. 1900, 1909, best hitter. Honus Wagner, best pitcher. Christy Mathewson. 1910, 1919, best hitter. Ty Cobb, best pitcher. Walter Johnson. 1920, 1929, best hitter. Roger Hornsby. Best pitcher. Burleigh Grimes. 1930, 1939, best hitter. Paul Waner. Best pitcher. Lefty Grove. 1940, 1949, best hitter. Lou Bogereau. Best pitcher, Hal Neuhauser. Those are the war years. He played during the war. Other players did not. That's why they didn't accumulate as many hits. 1950, 1959, best hitter, Stan Musial. Best pitcher, Warren Spahn. 1960 to 1969, best hitter, Roberto Clemente. Best pitcher, Juan Marichal. Some of those 60 pitchers, they overlap in other decades. That's why they didn't get as many victories, whereas Marichal did get a lot of victories in that decade. 1970, 1979. Who was the best hitter? Pete Rose. And who was the best pitcher? Jim Palmer. Now I'm on 1980 through 1989. Who was the best hitter? Who got the most hits? You can argue this person's better than the other, but during that decade, who got the most hits? I added it up. 10-year period. Robin Yount wins it. 1731 hits, 821 RBI, 331 average. Highest. Who came in second? I'm looking down the list. Eddie Murray comes in second. 1,642 hits, 996 RBI, 316. Who's next? Wade Boggs. 1,597 hits, 523 RBI, 368 was his high. Who else? Harold Baines. 1,547 hits, 835 RBI, 309. Who else? Andre Dawson. 1,539 hits, 895 RBI, 308. Average was his high. Who else cracked 1,500 hits? Rickey Henderson, 1,507, 535 RBI, 319. Some other significant people here. Alan Trammell, 1,504 hits, 720 RBI, 343. Probably wondering about some of those players in the 80s. Will they they went into the 90s. See, they started in the 80s, went to the 90s. Some of these other guys played in the 70s, and they did a majority of the 80s. That's why some of their hits are more than some of these other players. George Brett, 1,446 RBI hits, 851 RBI, 390 was his high. Paul Molitor, 1,421 hits, 474 RBI, 353. Dave Winfield, 1,441 hits, 909 RBI, 340. And I'll go down the list. Tim Raines, 1,467 hits, 490 RBI, 334. And then Jim Rice, 1,476 hits, 868 RBI, 324. I'll go down the list here, no particular order. Tony Gwynn, 1,354 hits, 416 RBI, 370. Pete Rose, 884 hits, 301 RBI, 325. Carl Yastrzemski. See, some of these guys are finishing. Other guys are just getting started. Carl Yastrzemski, 410 hits, 231 RBI, 275. Ken Griffey, 120 hits, 61 RBI, 264. Reggie Jackson, 864 hits, 582 RBI, 300. Mike Schmidt, 1,287 hits, 929 RBI, 316. Willie Stargell, 87 hits, 64 RBI, 283. Rod Carew, 838 hits, 238 RBI, 339. Craig Biggio enters the decade, 140 hits, 65 RBI, 257. Kirby Puckett, 1,243 hits, 506 RBI, 356. Tony Perez, 652 hits, 295 RBI, 328. Joe Morgan, 502 hits, 243 RBI, 289. Ryan Sandberg, 1,395 hits, 549 RBI, 314. Ozzie Smith, 1,392 hits, 477 RBI, 303 average. Roberto Alomar, 329 hits, 97 RBI, 295. Edgar Martinez, 66 hits, 30 RBI, 281. Barry Larkin, 437 hits, 154 RBI, 342. So you can see, Cal Ripken, 1,402 hits, 744 RBI, 318. So you can see some guys played the full 10. Some guys just played 8 of the 10. Some guys 6 years out of 10 because they played in the 70s or they played in the 90s. See, they kind of interlap. You can play 1980, 1990, your hit total will be high. But not too many players are having that 10-year straight 80 to 90. They're starting either in 75 and then they go to 92, or they start at 85 and they go to 2000. See what happens. But as far as the 1980s, Robin Yount wins it, 1,731 hits. Then you get Eddie Murray, 1,642. Wade Boggs, 1,597. Harold Baines, 1,547. Andre Dawson, 1,539. And Alan Trammell had 1,504. Jim Rice, 1,467. George Brett, 1,446. Paul Molitor, 1,421. And Dave Winfield, 1,441. And Cal Ripken, 1,402. So are some of the high guys. Tony Gwynn, 1,354. We'll see what Gwynn does in the 90s. See how many hits he accumulates. All right, as far as pitching, who won it? Who had the most victories in the 1980s? Again, players are overlapping. Pitchers are overlapping. I've got a player that started in the 1960s, played in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. How about that? And then you got a player that is just finishing up his career in the 80s. And then those who are just starting their career in the 80s. But who won the decade? With the most victories, Jack Morris comes out on top. 162 wins, 2,442 innings, 1,629 strikeouts. Then who's next? I've got Bert Blyleven, 123 wins, 2,082 innings, 1,252 strikeouts. And I've got Nolan Ryan, 122 wins, 2,091 innings, 2,167 strikeouts. Who else pitched well? Don Sutton, 107 wins, 1,771 innings, 1,050 strikeouts. Steve Carlton, 104 wins, 1,735 innings, 1,453 strikeouts. Tom Seaver, 76 wins, 1,331 innings, 753 strikeouts. Greg Maddux just gets started, 45 wins, 673 innings, 396 strikeouts. Randy Johnson gets started, 10 wins, 186 innings, 155 strikeouts. Gaylord Perry finishes up, 35 wins, 766 innings, 393 strikeouts. Phil Niekro, 100 wins, 1,641 innings, 940 strikeouts. Tom Glavine, 28 wins, just getting started, 431 innings, 194 strikeouts. Ferguson Jenkins finishing up, 37 wins, 688 innings, 422 strikeouts. Jim Palmer finishing up, 43 wins, 671 innings, 285 strikeouts. John Smoltz getting started, 14 wins, 272 innings, 205 strikeouts. What do you think here? The 1980s. Give it up for Jack Morris, 162 wins, followed by Bert Blyleven, 123. You got Don Sutton, 107. Phil Niekro, 100. Steve Carlton, 104. And Nolan Ryan, 122. Let's see what happens with the... Nolan Ryan pitched in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. How about that? Let's see what happens in the 1990s. Who wins the hitting? Who wins the pitching? Okay? Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. I'm out.